Howdy folks, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to a new episode. So one of you kindly asked me to do a tutorial concerning the Total War mod of Hearts of Iron 4. So despite being overwhelmed by work, I think I found the time finally to record this special episode again. And just to kind of warn you, so in case you won't be disappointed by my video, this will not be an in-depth tutorial. This will not be a video in which I will tell you how to min-max every major or let's say big minor nations in HOI4. No, so this is just, let's say, my way to guide you through the Total War mod and explain what to do to always emerge victorious from your campaigns. Of course, this guide is heavily biased by my big experience with Italy, Germany, and the Soviet Union. So I will talk more about these nations maybe, and slightly less about other nations like Japan, the USA, and China, for instance. This video will be divided into some kind of chapters, let's say, and will focus on the research, focus trees, construction, production, and the most important of all, the divisional templates. So, without further ado, let's dive straight into it. So, research is by far, I think, the most important aspect of the Total War mod. It is, I think, something that you have to plan ahead before starting any campaign. When you open the game and launch a new campaign, you always have to keep in mind what is the goal of my campaign. Do I want to play as an historical nerd? Do I want to play something else? Do I want to try a different approach, a different strategy? Because the Total War mod has what I really like, it forces you to make choices. And for instance, especially when playing as Japan, you're faced with the question, okay, do I focus more the army or the navy? Because in the early stages of the war, you have to fight against China, while in the later stages you have to fight against the USA, maybe the UK and the other allied nations. So this is personally what I really like about this mod, the fact that you have a limited amount of slots and an enormous choice of options that you can choose from. So of course, as you may know, different nations do come with a different number of research slots, and I will talk maybe more about it in the focus tree chapter, but you want to make sure to have always the highest number of research slots as possible, and this of course can be done via the focus tree. Now, in regard to research, let's see. In regard to the infantry, I assume that every army will have infantry, will use infantry, and will see the infantry as the queen of the battle. So every army will consist of a backbone of infantry divisions. And because of this, within this, let's say, folder, there are 3 lines that you should always prioritize. And these are the lines are the weapons and equipment, namely the rifle and improved infantry equipment line, the heavy machine gun line, and the mortars line, as these are, I would say, the 3 big must for the infantry army. Submachine guns are nice, I mean, only if you plan to have a large offensive army like, let's say, Germany, when playing as Germany. I like to go down this branch. I mean, it's only 2 researchers, and I like it. The headquarters command, I think it's let's say a must after these 3 lines, especially because of these juicy plus 15 organization of the divisional head HQ support company, which is very nice. If you plan to have an army containing not too many but a few motorized or mechanized or Panzer divisions, I would then recommend researching the improved track 1, track 2 and track 3 because of the reduction in supply consumption, organization, and I think also the maximum speed. The mass motorization, it's nice to have because it will allow you to save some factories from the production of horse equipment, but I will talk about it later maybe. And yeah, so you can have a few more factories that you can use to build something else. Of course, if you play as the USA, you can, let's say, do the challenge of having a mechanized only army, because with the USA you have enough research slots and enough factories to produce whatever you want, basically. The garrison line is definitely on the lowest priority, because unless you are playing with maybe either Germany or the Soviet Union, in which you plan to defend long stretches of territories, I would not really waste your time on this one. And again, also the improved uniforms, it's cool to have it because of this 0.05 recovery rate of the infantry divisions, but again, do it only if you have enough time and research slots available. The special forces, let's say these are techs that you have to research if you play, of course, a nation like Japan, the USA, I don't know, Australia, New Zealand, all these kind of nations. And well, since you will have to fight a lot of naval campaigns, the amphibious support company and the Marines and all this line, basically, it's a must. You should research it to improve the performance. If you play as a nation like, I don't know, Italy or any of the Balkans nations, or if you plan like Turkey to fight your war in the Caucasus or in any region with mountains and hills, then it could be worth to research the mountain infantry because of this nice organization, attack, and recovery rate. Now, paratroopers, I personally never played them in the Total War mode, so I cannot say anything. I cannot judge whether it's really worth to invest your time and resources in researching this technology. And the same is true for the Special Forces branch. So if you plan, let's say, if you play as Japan and you plan to fight in Birmania, in Birmania, then I think you should research the Jungle Support Company. If you play as Italy, which I think does not have this tech researched yet, you should do it, because the Desert Support Company will, I think, increase your speed and organization and reduce the supply consumption in the desert. And since as Italy you will have to fight in the desert unless you plan to give up North Africa entirely, which I don't recommend you to do, then you should really research it. And between the right and the left branches, I don't know, honestly. If I had to choose, I would go on the right branch, because I like the approach of quality over quantity. So yeah. In regard to the support companies, in this folder there are at least 2 companies which are absolutely a must. And the first one is, of course, the logistics company, because the logistics company will give you access to a I think, 4, 1, 2, 3, 5, sorry, 5 different companies that will reduce the supply consumption of your troops. And as you may know, in the Total War mode, supplies consumption, yeah, plural, is everything. So you have to prioritize this one on every other technology. First, the second company is the signal company. And if you may wonder why, the reason is because the signal company, to mimic, you know, the fast communication between the various branches of the division, will increase the organization, the overall organization of the division. It may not be that much, but we can see later when we will discuss the divisional templates. Now, field hospital, it's good to have if you play as a nation with a limited manpower pool, so not as Russia or China. When I play as Germany or Italy, I like to have it just to reduce the amount of losses. Maintenance company, again, it's nice to have if you have expensive equipment. And I personally always have this company in my Motorized and my Panzer Divisions. The MPs, again, it's nice to suppress partisans. So again, if you plan to play as an aggressive nation, and I'm talking mainly to the people who play Germany, I would highly recommend this, as this in the long run could give you some benefits in terms of amount of equipment and manpower which is spent in garrisoning your occupied areas. The engineers are, again, I think the third must after the supply, the logistics and the signal companies, because they overall they have a nice bonus. I mean, they give you entrenchment values and some combat bonuses in river forts and cities. The flamethrower squad and mobile pontoon bridges, again, these are techs that are nice to have. Of course, they increase the supply consumption of the engineer company, but you know, if you plan to attack a lot of fortified areas, or if you plan to break through the starting line, or you know, I think it's nice to have, but again, not really a big must. And the recon company is, I think, also needed in priority order after the engineer company. Now, the Panzerwaffe, or the tank trees. Tank and of course also light vehicles. As you may know, the Total War mode has unique tank trees and also the airplane trees for every of the big majors. My recommendation is always to go with medium tanks. Light tanks, yes, they're fast, they can maybe support 1 or 2 battalions, your motorized divisions, but do not use them as your main fighting force. I like to have medium tanks, and personally, unless I am playing a highly historical Germany, I like to go along the line of the Panzer IV, because the line of the Panzer IV always have a higher soft attack, and I assume that the AI will mostly field an infantry-based defense, and against an infantry-based defense you want to have a high soft attack. Of course, now we should speculate about whether the AI will put AT guns or heavy AA guns in its divisions, but that's another topic. And also the other reason of why I like to follow the line of the Panzer IV, again, unless I'm planning to play a highly historically nerd and historically accurate campaign, is because the Panzer IV line will give me a direct access to the Panther tank, while from the Panzer III line I should research first the Panzer IIIN, and then I could go to the Panther tank. And I think it's no need to say that if we compare the the Panzer III, and the Panther tank. The Panther has higher heart attack, higher armor. Okay, slightly lower reliability, slightly lower speed, but slightly higher soft attack. You may say, yeah, but if you follow the Panzer III line, you can unlock the assault guns. And yes, you can. The problem is that I never played with the assault guns, so I should try on my own a campaign in which I develop this the Sturmgeschütz, the assault guns technologies, and see how do they perform. I mean, they look kind of interesting. Yeah, I mean, actually, if you ever use this battalions in your division, please let me know in the comments below, because I'm personally really curious to see. What I always like to have in my divisions, and actually I think we can just do like this. Oh, I need some extra technologies. Okay, never mind. Is to research the tank destroyers and the self-propelled artillery. I think they fit quite nice in my Panzer divisions, but again, we can discuss about it later. The artillery. This is, I think, the folder in which you have to make your choice since the beginning, because you simply cannot research every line. I would personally recommend to stick with the light artillery branch, because I think it's enough. We can again talk about this in the divisional template composition, but the light artillery, I think, has the highest, let's say, benefits to malusus ratio. The anti-aircraft branch can be followed until the heavy AA gun tech of 1940, and this can be worth if you don't plan to develop the anti-tank line, and if you, let's say, if you assume that you will fight a nation like maybe the Soviet Union, which will field a much larger air force, because as I will discuss later, one of the goal of every campaign is to achieve the so-called green air. And if you play HOI4, you know what I'm talking about. And the big advantage of the heavy AA gun battalion is that, first of all, of these technologies, that it gives you this juicy motorized support heavy anti-aircraft unit, which has a very nice piercing value. Besides having air attack, so it will reduce the impact of the enemy close air support, and at the same time provide you with something valuable with which to pierce through the enemy armor. And okay, so the AT guns always have, I think, higher piercing values, but again, if you don't plan to develop the AT line, and if you don't plan to invest too much into your air force, then having the heavy AA gun battalion unlocked can, let's say, alleviate most of your problems. And actually, yeah, as you can see, the advanced heavy HAA gun, oh good lord, even has the higher piercing value compared to the standard AT gun. Of course, I think at the end, yeah, the last branch of the AT guns always has the highest piercing values, but it's really up to you. I mentioned before about the light artillery. The medium artillery can also be researched. It can be good maybe in if you play as the US and you plan to invade Western Europe, because there is a lot of infrastructure developed, and I think the supply consumption, which is given by, let's say, better requested by the medium artillery battalion, I don't think it's written here. Okay, shame. Anyway, these guys are more expensive, both in terms of production as well as in supply consumption. Actually, production-wise, they're almost double in cost compared to the light artillery. Of course, they deliver a higher soft attack. The heavy guns, yeah, they're nice if you want to dedicate some, let's say, specialized siege divisions with maybe a bunch of infantry and shit ton of heavy guns. But again, it's not really worth it in my opinion. It can be good maybe in multiplayer if you want to coordinate with other minor nations, but otherwise, no. Railway guns, I personally never played them, and the same is true for the rocket artillery. Again, if you ever use those kind of battalions, just please let me know what do you think about them in the comments below. Doctrine wise, again, this is very nation dependent. I mean, when you play as Germany, I think it's highly recommended to go through the mobile warfare doctrine, and I personally like to go on the right branch in both sections because I want to maximize the firepower and organization of my tanks. If you play, I don't know, as the UK, Italy as well, I think Japan as well, you can stick to the Grand Battle Plan doctrine. If you want to use my strategy as Italy, so to have a small but highly mobile and armored army in North Africa, you should stick instead to the mobile warfare doctrine. If you play as the USA, you can follow the superior firepower doctrine, even though this will increase a bit your supply consumption. And nations like China and the USSR can use the mass assault doctrine, although even as the USSR, I could try once to use the mobile warfare doctrine just to have some kind of speed in my divisions. And I mean, if you play a minor like Finland, I think this is your doctrine to choose. So it's very focused on the defense, and yeah, as Finland, I think this could be your focus tree. This is probably the most critical aspect of research, because as you guys know, I'm really bad in playing as any naval nation, because I really need to invest time in understanding the concept of naval warfare. You know, for me, there's just I could swarm the seas with carriers and carrier-borne naval bombers and just sink the crap out of my enemies, basically. From what I understood in reading the Discord and watching other videos, the way that naval battles are fought is that you need to have a balanced fleet. So again, I think you should decide since the beginning, okay, I want to invest in carriers and light cruisers, or in battleships, destroyers, submarines, and naval bombers. And as you can witness, then the amount of choices that you have to make is really huge. And this is true especially for nations like Japan, the US, and the UK. But I cannot say anything else I really cannot say if it's worth to invest in battleships rather than carriers. It's really up to you guys. And naval doctrine wise is the same. Since I really don't care too much about the Navy when I play the Total War mod, yeah, it's really up to you. The Air Force, again, every major nation has its own air folder, and in the case of Germany, you have several choices, and I think this is the same. This holds true for the other nations. Personally, again, I would go with the fighter option with a fighter folder and the close air support, because as I mentioned before, one of the goal of every campaign is to achieve green air, and the only way to achieve green air is to basically have more and ideally better planes than your opponents. Now, in the case of Germany, you have again two choices: either develop the Bf 109 line or the Heinkel line. And out of pure curiosity, of course, the Heinkel fighters, maybe you may not know it, but actually performs better than the Bf 109. So, if you want to play an historical Germany, you should suffer more by going down the Bf 109 line, because even though this was what happened in real life, also what was true is that the Heinkel fighters, the fighter proposed by Heinkel was better compared to the Bf 109, and this is represented by its higher speed, higher agility, and slightly higher air attack. And agility, speed, and air attack are, I think, 3 out of 4 the most important parameters you need to take into account when picking a fighter branch. Now, the other option is to choose your ground support plane, and you always have the choice between close air support, light, and tactical or medium bombers. The reason why I prefer the close air support is simply because these planes will have the same range of your fighters, and I like to have close air support within my fighter range, because I don't want to send my bombers, which are way more expensive than I don't know, the close air support branch, as you can see here. And the close air support fighters will always have a higher ground attack value, as you can see maybe from this comparison. Yeah, ground attack 8 versus 7. I mean, it's not that much, but let's see from this one, 17 versus 8. Yeah, now things are getting more interesting, let's say, the more you progress down the line. Light bombers, I personally, again, is something that I never played with, so yeah, 10 versus 17, yeah, I don't know. I mean, of course, the twin engine bombers do have the range advantage, while with the close air support you should make some maybe variants in which you boost the engine, the reliability, and the maximum range of those planes. Heavy fighters are again an optional choice. I would personally research them and develop them, and I would personally keep them on the inner front, basically, because I will never forget my very first campaign with Germany, in which in a matter of 6 months all of my factories got obliterated by the Royal Air Force, because I didn't have any heavy fighters defending the skies of the fatherland. Let's quickly have a look at the Soviet Union, because now I don't really have access to the heavy fight. Yeah, they do have access, so it's, and I guess the same it's true for Italy. UK and the USA do have an heavy fighter branch. We discussed about planes, and oh, I forgot, when you have to choose between let's say 2 branches of the same line, I like to go with the line that has the highest ground attack, which for the early stages, it will look like the Stuka, but if you go on, at some point the Henschel will catch up and even bypass the Stuka in terms of ground attack. Let's see at the very bottom what we have. Yeah, the 262 has 30 versus 28. Air doctrine wise, I don't want to go too much into details of that, because it's really again up to you. I personally like to go on along the battlefield support to just maximize the let's say the performance of my close air support planes, as well as the contribution that those planes will have on the battlefield. I never switched to the other doctrines, but it's really, again, it's up to you. If you plan to play a campaign, let's say as the UK, in which you want to just bomb Germany into the oblivions, then I would stick to the strategic destruction line. Now, the last two folders are probably the most interesting ones, because in the engineering folder you have again some very must technologies. First of all, you have the electronic engineering and the computing technologies, which will increase the overall research speed. And if you have something like that, just go ahead and invest time in researching these technologies. First of all, these techs will increase the overall speed of your research, and in the leftmost branch you have, I think, some of the most I would say powerful techs, which are the radio technologies. The radio, yes, of course, they will increase the amount of equipment needed by your battalions, but the amount of bonuses that they will provide are just insane. Now, again, you have to research what you will plan to use in your campaign. The divisional HQ, the core HQ, and yeah, the army HQ. Maybe not the army, but at least these two are kind of, again, a must for your division, because in every division you will need to have the HQ company. You should develop as well the infantry radio, because, as I said at the beginning, the core of your army will be based on the infantry. And I would personally also research the artillery line, because, as I said, you will invest at least in one of the artillery branches, and you may just want to give your arty some boost by following this line. If you play again as a nation with like Germany, Italy, the Soviets, the US, you may want to invest also in the truck radio and the tank radio, as well as the radio too, because this will overall increase the performance of your motorized and Panzer divisions. The last one is the industry. Again, on the tools branch, it's nice to have these machine tools technologies because of the increased efficiency cap, especially also the efficiency growth. And on the, let's say, right hand side of the tools line, I would recommend researching everything until these two technologies. This one, yeah, it's nice to have, but actually I don't think it's really nice to have. Just forget about it, seriously. Okay, you will have this 10% factory output, but the minus 15% in efficiency growth is, I think, something actually the parameter that will hurt you most. And I think they changed it. Okay, sorry, I thought there was... I think that this is new. I should play the Total War mod more often, actually. Yeah, so everything but this one. In regard to concentrated versus dispersed, again, it's really up to you. I like to go with concentrated, namely because of the higher max factories in a state modifier, as well as because of the... maybe not here, but... oh, sorry. Yeah, basically you won't have the production efficiency retention in case you plan to swap equipment. And the factories that will reduce the production cost of your equipment are, again, in the long run, a good investment. And I would personally select the factories that will reduce the production cost of the most expensive equipment. Like, if you play as Germany, I would prioritize maybe the tank factories, the automotive factories, maybe the light aircraft and the heavy aircraft. Or even not, because, yeah, I think the close air support... exactly, the close air support falls within the light aircraft factories, so I think at least these three could be a good investment for you. But again, if you plan to play, I don't know, as an aggressive naval power, then I would focus more on these three technologies. And so on, and so on. The construction, defenses, and civilian branches. Again, these are, I would say, other must technologies. The construction line, because it will unlock the other lines. Maybe not the fortifications, unless again you plan to invest heavily into force. But the infrastructural works, the railway network, the road network, and the airbase technologies are, again, I think, really crucial if you want to wage offensive wars, especially as Germany or Italy. And I think as well as the Soviet Union, if you want to improve the supply consumption and the overall supply situation of your troops. Dockyards, again, only if you play as a naval nation, while the civilian branch is, again, highly recommended, especially because of this plus 3% of base stability. The agricultural advances, it's again a must, because this plus 0.5% of recruitable population will compensate for the minus 0.5% of the industry branch. The healthcare system, it's nice to have, again, not really highly recommended for manpower-rich nations like China or the USSR. And the education system, I think it's good, especially because of the plus 1% of research speed. I know it's not that much, but it's better than nothing. I mean, at the end you will have a plus 5%, which can be, again, you know, very useful in the long run. The heavy industry branch, it's good to have for nations which do not have either immediate access or do not have a lot of resources, because of the production, of the increased production in steel, aluminium, and chromium slash rare materials. Yeah, exactly. If you plan to invest in a mechanized army, like maybe when you play as the US, going down this branch could be an investment, especially if you want to research the advanced casting and the advanced welding at the end, because this will, again, also reduce the production cost of your tank and armored units. And I think the last most important branch is the synthetic resources. I personally found out that for nations like Germany or Italy, this is again another must-have technology, especially the rubber branch, because yeah, you can trade it in the early stages with the Dutch East Indies or with Siam or Brazil, but in the long run I would highly recommend for the Axis nations, maybe not as Japan, but yeah, for Italy and Germany you have to become independent in terms of rubber, ideally in terms of oil as well. For Germany this can be kind of made easier by the trade with Romania and by conquering the Caucasus oil fields, but as Italy I think you really have to invest in these two branches. And yeah, I think that this concludes the research chapters, and I hope that now you guys will have a slightly clearer ideas. And having said that, let's move on to the construction branch. So hopefully this section won't take as much as the research one did. So construction wise, what can I tell you? First of all, have a look at the infrastructure level, because these the level of the infrastructures will heavily affect the construction speed of basically everything. I do not know how much and if and how much things will change with the Barbarossa patch. If the railways as well will increase the construction speed to mimic, I don't know, the speed in moving construction materials, or I don't know. In regard to what you have to construct, well, I tried this strategy with Germany at least, and it seems to be working nice. You should invest in civilian factories for at least 2 in-game years, which will mean to just build this kind of factories for 1936 and 1937. From 1938 to 1939 you should switch to military factories to really ramp up your production and pump out as much equipment as possible. And in between 1939 and 1940 you should invest in the synthetic oil refineries, and especially in the synthetic rubber refineries as well. Otherwise, if you have enough spare time, you can squeeze in between some steel refineries, even though they are very expensive, so it's really this is your choice. Fuel silos, I don't know. Maybe I would build 3 or 4 of them, but do not really spend too much energies in that. And again, naval dockyards only if you plan again if you play in a nation like Japan, the USA, the UK, or Italy. If you want to go on a naval-oriented Italy, then you should invest in naval dockyards. Otherwise, just focus on military factories. Forts, again, only if you plan, I don't know, as Germany to build up the Atlantic Wall, or if you play as the Soviet Union. I think forts are a good investment if you want to defend the famous Dnieper and the Dwina line. But other than that, I will not really invest too much into that. I mentioned before the anti-aircraft guns. You can invest into these if you plan to sacrifice the heavy fighters, even though I still think that heavy fighters can outperform the static AA guns, because if we can go back to the research, okay, the heavy AA gun battalion tech will give you some very small bonuses, and I think the bulk, yeah, okay, so you have this 10% of static AA hit chance factor. I don't know how this works, but I would rather go with the heavy fighters, honestly, if you want to defend the skies of the motherland. Radar stations are again another tech that I mean, they're a building that I never used in my campaign, so I really don't know if it's worth to invest the research as well as the construction of these. You need to take into account consumer goods when you prepare your industry. Therefore, it's crucial to, as always, try to go to war economy as soon as possible. And the advantage of Germany, and I don't know if the Soviets as well, is that they have, oh my god, it's, yeah, but the Soviets could go on partial mobilization. Also, when you have decisions that will allow you to I don't know, increase resources, maybe not here now, it's really up to you if you want to invest into these resource decisions to sacrifice, I don't know, 5 civilian factories for 90 days or 120 days. Overall, I think it's always a good investment in the long run to develop a bit the local resources by paying the price in terms of civilian factories, because yeah, the fact that maybe you will have to trade less will save you 1 or 2 civilian factories in the long run, and I think that the 5 you invested for, I think, 3 or 4 months, it's actually a good investment, worth doing it. And I think I said everything about the construction, and therefore let's now move on to the production. And here comes another very interesting aspect of the Total War mod, the very highly diversified equipment that you have to balance if you want to field as many divisions as possible. Equipment in the Total War mod is more expensive than I think in vanilla or other mods, which will make every single division on the map count. Again, just like research, the production section is something that you have to plan in advance, and also during your campaign you have to make the choice. Okay, let's say, shall I maybe research, if I rush, let's say, the rifle line, shall I research the Gewehr G41, or shall I rush for the Gewehr G43 and then produce this one? I mean, I know it's stupid, but it gives you the idea. Do you want maybe to make, I don't know, a variant of the Carabiner 98K, or just rush for the Gewehr G41 tech, you know? And this is true also for the other types of equipment. As I said at the beginning, because the bulk of the armies will be made by Infantry Division, I think it's always nice to have a lot of factories on the infantry equipment. Germany has 16. I would go between 15 and 20. And uniforms, of course. Support tools, obviously. Artillery, choose one. Again, anti-tank guns versus AA guns, it's up to you folks. Horse equipment, only if you can produce at the beginning, but remember to reduce it from the production when you research the mass motorization line. Panzers, as I said at the beginning, it's up to you. I would rush for the medium tank and then switch my templates to medium tanks. Lorries, yes, I would actually invest a lot, between, I would say, 10, 20, or even up to 25 factories if I plan to use a lot of motorized divisions in my army. And the same is true for light vehicles, at least 5 or 10 factories, because when you will research this mass motorization, you will need a lot of cars and light vehicles. Radio equipment, yes, and I will come back to it in a second. Fighters, I mean, by using my approach of fighters and close air support, I would invest at least 20 or 25 factories on fighters and at least 10 to 15 factories on close air support, because the goal is to achieve green air superiority and have enough close air support to actually join the battle and shred the enemy divisions to pieces. I realize now that I forgot to mention Naval Bombers. In my opinion, they can be quite effective, but again, I would not use them on their own, but at the same time I would not waste fighters, divert fighters to provide air cover over sea zones. So I leave again the choice up to you guys. If you want to invest in them, I think it's a good investment. Otherwise, you can just do as I do, which I just forget about the Navy, and I can just pump out convoys non-stop, basically. Now, concerning the equipment variant, I think the only worth equipment that you can modify are actually two of them. The first one is the uniform equipment. I would encourage you to research these three upgrades to the maximum, because it's not really expensive in terms of army experience requirement. It will slightly boost the reliability and slightly reduce the production cost of the uniforms, and in the long run this can save you maybe 1 or 2 military factories from the uniform branch that you can use on, you know, in producing something else, basically. And the other equipment is the radio equipment, because this equipment cannot be updated by other technologies. This will be what you will be producing for the whole for your whole campaign. So I think it's always nice and good to invest in unit mobility and in the officer quality. This will increase your speed, reliability, of course the production cost, but since you will never change this kind of equipment, again, I think this is a very worth doing investment. Machine gun defenses, yeah, I never tried this. I would prefer just the officer quality and the unit mobility. AA defenses, again, I don't think it's worth for this 0.2 air attack. Tank wise, I would not invest into variants. If you plan to have, let's say, self-propelled artillery, or actually we can even do it now, we can yeah, do like this and like this and like this, and then go to the, yeah, this one needs the range finding testing. What the F? Yeah, always check the requirements of every technology, because maybe you need to unlock some other text to research what you really want to achieve. And if you plan to have TD and SPAs, then I would really dedicate no more than 5, 6, 7, yeah, between 5 and 10 factories per equipment, because you won't need too many of them. I mean, of course, it depends on your battalion composition. And naval production, I have simply no clue. I'm really sorry for that. And yeah, having said that, I think we can just talk about now the focus trees. The focus tree section is where I think the Total War mod really shines, because honestly I think that the focus trees for most of the nations are even better than other mods, like the Road to 56 and the Black Ice mod. But again, this is just my personal opinion. Again, as I said at the beginning, this won't be a guide to tell you, oh, you have to research to go along this focus first, then you have to pick this one, then that one. No. My philosophy when it comes to focus trees is always rush down the focus tree, the focus that will give you an extra research slot. And actually I think one is exactly this one, Western knowledge. Oops. And the other one, I think it's, yeah, this one, extra research slot. Others, I don't think that Germany has. Exactly, yeah. And because, as I said at the beginning, research is the most important aspect of the Total War mod, and the more research slots you have, the better it is for you. So try to rush down these foci as soon as possible, but of course there are limitations, because for instance in the case of Germany you need to have I think Albert Speer, and to have Speer in your government, where is he? Oh yeah, you have to wait until February of 1942, so it's, yeah, it's quite a heavy investment, let's say. Oh, I forgot, we could talk about the government as well, yeah, true. And after that, after the increased number of research slots, I would invest in any focus that will give a national modifier, and national modifiers are these. Any, let's say, NM that will increase your overall research speed. Maybe they're not present in the German focus tree, but for sure in the Soviet one, I recall this one. You have this minus 25% of electronic research speed, yeah, and here you have the option to alleviate this malus by half by going through the ramp up for investment. Again, this is an interesting compromise, because you also, and when you play as the Soviet Union, you have the legacy of the Great Famine, which will reduce by half the monthly population growth. And of course, the only way to get rid of that is to go through the farm collectivization focus, and then the bread basket of Europe, which of course will prevent you from reducing this malus in the electronic research speed. So again, it's really up to you if you want to have quality over quantity. And after research and third level of priority goes to those foci that will give you free factories, civilian factories, military factories, fuel silos, and I think, yeah, synthetic rubber refineries and synthetic oil refineries. because those buildings are quite expensive, and if you can save time by researching these foci, it's always a good investment. You could invest as Germany, maybe. I don't know if they have the fort. No. Oh yeah, you have the Ost Wall, the West Wall, I think, somewhere. I don't recall. Anyway, so these foci, yeah, the Atlantic Wall, there it is. I mean, you could invest if you're not getting bombed to death by the Royal Air Force, and if you don't have that many factories to put into repair, then you can manually build the coastal forts. Otherwise, yeah, you can go through these foci and then build up the defenses of Europe, or of the Soviet Union, or of Italy, or whatever country you're playing with. And besides that, it's really up to you guys, based on the priority of your campaign, which kind of path or focus you want to focus on, let's say. And having said that, I think we can say a few words about the government. In regard to the government, there is not too much that has to be said, because, well, first of all, as I mentioned before, try to go on partial mobilization because of this nice reduction in terms of consumer good factories. The trade laws, ideally you would want to invest in the free trade option if you can, of course, because of the nice research speed, construction speed bonuses, and so on and so forth. In terms of advisor, I would prioritize the silent workers, followed by the popular figurehead, if you have it. If you don't have it, again, try to pick someone who will mostly from whom you will mostly benefit, let's say, during your campaign. My favorite choice would be anyone who will increase the party popularity, the ruling party popularity, because what you want to achieve is at least at least 65% of your ruling party popularity, because this will allow you to, this will unlock these decisions, and amongst these decisions the most important one is the motivate research teams, that for 1 year will increase the research speed by 12.5%, which seems nothing, but can be useful for many nations. Again, for the design factories, is again really up to you guys. For the theorist, I like to go with at least one land doctrine expert. Oh, sorry, the military theorist, and one air support. How it's called? The air warfare theorist, because of the nice bonuses that they will provide to the doctrine research speed. If you have, and if I play as according to my strategy, I would go with the close air support proponent and the mobile warfare proponent. I think Germany does have these guys. Otherwise, again, just try to fit someone that provides the highest amount of bonuses to your divisions. And the same is true for the high command. If you plan to have, I don't know, infantry or Motorized Infantry or Panzers, try to pick something like the Army organization or the Army maneuver to increase the speed of your divisions. Here I would go with someone who has the ground support trait, and here again I would go with either the infantry or the armor. Maybe the army regrouping, so at least 2 of the land experts and 1 of the air. Maybe the close air support, or yeah, maybe I don't think the night exactly. The night operation hits, yeah. So yeah, pick someone who will increase the close air support mission efficiency. And the last point that I wanted to mention are the occupied territories. I would always go with civilian oversight, because in my opinion, I mean, you should always choose something in the long term, but again, if you're running low on resources or factories, you can always go on a more aggressive occupation law. I like the civilian oversight because I like to gain to benefit more from the long-term occupation of my territories, basically. And with that said, I think that's all from what I wanted to talk about in terms of government, and I think it's now the time to say a few words about the divisional templates. About time, I think we talk about the most interesting aspect of the Total War mod. First of all, let me tell you that there is no good template. There is no all-round template. There is no universal template that it's good for every condition. If you go on the Black Eyes Discord page, several people proposed several templates that maybe, I don't know, the template that work well for, I don't know, Germany may not work well for Romania, for Japan, or for the Soviet Union. Again, this is something that you need to plan ahead of your campaign. Will I face an enemy that will fight mostly in the mountains, like maybe Japan versus China? Will I face an enemy that will field exclusively infantry, like Japan, maybe again Japan versus China? Or will my enemy, I don't know, invest in anti-aircraft battalions? So do I have to spend a lot of close air support that will be shredded by those AA guns? Or, I don't know, will my enemy invest in marines? So do I have to change my garrison templates? Do I need to invest into coastal fortifications? And, you know, these are all questions that I know it sounds stupid, but you should always, you know, try to figure out when you start a campaign. So the bulk of the army will be made by infantry divisions, and this one already per se looks like a good template, because you have 8 infantry battalions. I know historically you should have something like this for Germany. You should have an extra artillery battalion, so you have 3 light, 1 medium, and 1 anti-tank. But this template does not make sense at all, because you now have a combat width of 23, which, considering that a combat will always have a 120 combat width, this simply cannot work. You can either make it a 24 combat width, or just stick it to the 20 combat width. And if you give me 1 second, with the power of editing, I will show you my favorite infantry template. So here we are. My ideal infantry template consists of 8 infantry battalions, 3 light artillery battalions, and 1 anti-tank battalion. In regard to the support companies, I changed the horse-drawn supply company with the motorized one, because this one, the motorized logistics company, will always give you the highest bonus in terms of supply usage reduction. I added, as I mentioned before, the signal company, because you can see that without it we get a 2.6 reduction of the organization, which is always nice. And I also added the heavy AA gun support battalion, because it's nice to have it, and overall this result in a slight increase in all of the stats, as well as in the decrease in the most, let's say, crucial one, which is the supply consumption. Yeah, let's do like this. Now, in regard to the Panzer Divisions, this is the original template, and this is what I ideally would like to have prior to the start of, at least again when playing as Germany, prior to the invasion of France. So a Panzer Division with 4 medium tank battalions, 6 motorized infantry battalions, to have an organization which is at least as high as the one with the infantry divisions, and I think this will be even higher by researching the land doctrines. 1 armored car for these nice bonuses in terms of movement and recon values, 2 motorized artillery battalions, and 1 motorized anti-tank battalion. I also added the motorcycle recon company and nothing else, because the supply usage of the division is now, I would say, relatively high, and I do not want to increase it further. Maybe in the late war you can replace the artillery, the motorized artillery, with self-propelled units. Of course, this will increase even more the supply usage, but I hope that if you are kind of victorious by 1943, you should have increased the infrastructure levels in the east, and this could make your supply situation in the east slightly better. And yeah, let's not forget that the Panzer Divisions will not be your frontline divisions, but so I like to use them as my breakthrough divisions. That's why I made them a 24 combat width division. The motorized infantry, I think it follows, let's say, the same pattern of the infantry division. This, let's say, could hold true for Italy, maybe. If you plan to invest a lot into motorized divisions in the desert, then you should have something like this. So basically the same template for the infantry, just with motorized units. And yeah, I would highly recommend to add the desert support company if you plan to invest to fight in desert conditions. Let's say these are, I think, the 3 most basic templates that you can use. In regard to the garrison division, if we talk about the off-map garrison, I would really maximize the whole divisions with garrison battalions, because this will increase the overall suppression values of the division, and this should be your off-map garrison template. For the on-map garrison, so if you want to defend against amphibious invasions, I would go with something like this. Yeah, so basically a 12 garrison battalions division with the divisional headquarters for the massive boost in organization, and the engineer company, as this will increase the overall defenses. I don't know if it's yeah, so will increase the defenses against amphibious invasions, and I think I should increase into force as well. That's okay, something I was expecting it to happen, but okay, it should increase also the defenses in fortified areas, but at least, yeah, it will increase your defensive bonus against amphibious invasions. Now, there are other templates that maybe can be shown by playing other nations, such as the Soviet Union. And because when you play as the Soviet Union, of course, one of the goals of your campaign will be to survive the Axis onslaught. And while some people like to entrench themselves behind the Dvina-Dnieper line, what I figured out, and what should be, I think, the strategy you should try to use, is to simply saturate the whole area with small cannon fodder divisions. And you have, yeah, the Ukreplenny Rayon, which I think is the fortified area. I don't recall if the Total War... Oh yeah, you have the militia, yeah, exactly. Because when playing as the Soviet Union, sorry, one of the template, can we duplicate this? Yeah, exactly. I would have something which looks like this. So a very simple, very poor, very basic militia division with 5 militia battalions, 1 divisional headquarter, and 1 engineer company. So it looks like a lot like the German coastal defense unit. It is weaker, but it also uses slightly less supplies. And remember, you are playing as the Soviet Union. You do not want to invest in infrastructures in these areas that will just benefit your opponent, because I assume that you want to barricade yourself behind these two river line. So what you... oh, bloody hell, I forgot to save it. Anyway, what you would like to do is to spam those divisions between the front line and your main fortified line. That, of course, should be filled up with real infantry divisions. Not like this one, but maybe more like this one, you know? Because when the Axis will attack, one thing is to have the Axis units just drive through the Soviet Union and reach your front line with, let's say, maybe 75% of their organization. And another thing is to have the Axis literally pay in equipment and manpower for every single province they have to take. And of course, if you have multiple defensive lines, I know maybe the first line, the second, and even the third could be overrun within, let's say, 1 or 2 in-game days. But I can assure you that if you can fill up all these areas with weak militia troops, the Axis units will reach your main front line already weakened. And this could save you maybe enough time to, I don't know, pump out more planes, to produce more equipment, to train more troops, to reinforce even more your defensive line. I know I'm not really the kind of player who likes to sacrifice troops, but if I will ever play again the Soviet Union in the Total War mode, this is something that I'm willing to do, to sacrifice men, to, let's say, trade men for time, and of course trade land for time as well. And yeah, so, oh, I forgot, the Cavalry Divisions, I don't know what they are. If you want, when you research the mechanized equipment and you will have enough in production, you can slowly replace the motorized battalions in your tank divisions with the mechanized ones, because the combat bonuses will be even higher. And yeah, besides that, I do not have anything more to add. If you guys know, or if you have experience with other templates, just let me know in the comments below. I would be more than happy to make a video with your templates and compare them with my templates. That would be interesting. And if you use the assault gun battalions when playing as Germany, yeah, I mean, feel free to let me know what do you think about them, because I personally never use them. And again, thank you very much for watching. I apologize for this very long video. I hope it was helpful and or useful to some of you guys. And well, see you all hopefully again very soon. Stay safe and take care.